to know at Oxford, despite his name, and everybody who participated in the exhibition this morning. And I want to thank you for coming along to support a very, very important initiative for us. This is, I think, a groundbreaking moment in British politics, folks. You may not be aware of this, but this is the first ever exercise in trying to use the internet to develop the policies that we need to combat and to adapt to climate change. And we're going to invite everybody in London and everybody in the wider public to get on with their Twitterology, your place, my place, YouTube, whatever, to help us to adapt to make the challenge of climate change. And let me ask you why it's so essential to use these new techniques and to engage with the wider public. I think it's because if you look at the frenzy of suspicion that has engulfed a tiny number of emails from the University of East Anglia, it is obvious to me, I don't know about you, it's obvious to me that the public is starting to get a little bit fed up of being endlessly lectured and hectored and bullied by politicians. And what, therefore, we want to do is to engage with the public, to collaborate with Londoners on the necessary measures to adapt. And above all, to remind people that climate change and the consequences of climate change does not have to involve floods and plagues and locusts and a murrain on our cattle. We can use this hard environmental necessity of adapting to climate change to accomplish vital civilized objectives. We can beautify this city by creating more green roofs, by planting thousands of trees as we are doing, and if the scientists are right, and I think that they are, and I know that you think that they are, then we face potentially catastrophic inundations in the course of the next few years. Then not only will those trees and those green spaces look good and help to encourage people to relax and have a sense of well-being, but they will also, of course, help to absorb rainfall and help us to adapt to climate change. And if we can collectively militate for changes in the way we move about our city and get on our bikes more actively, as some of you do, and I hope that many more of you will be doing over the next few years, and if we can encourage the use of electric cars and low-carbon vehicles, and we're moving towards low-carbon buses, as many of you know, and low-carbon taxis as well, then, of course, if the scientists are right, and I think that they are, then we can not only help to make the urban environment more pleasant to live in and to move around, but we will also, of course, reduce vehicular CO2 emissions and end the lunacy that every time you buy a car, you are simultaneously investing in, over the lifetime of that car, a lagoon of fossil fuels. And by the same token, we can retrofit homes. In fact, we're doing 1.2 million homes, we're retrofitting homes. You know what I mean by retrofitting? Hands up who doesn't know what retrofitting is. This is obviously a highly educated audience. Retrofitting is, thank you for confessing that. Retrofitting is basically lagging and installing insulation of one kind or another. It's not rocket science, it's not difficult, but it's expensive, and if we do it up front, if we get the banks to invest in retrofitting up front, we can not only reduce CO2 emissions, and it's the single biggest way, by the way, that you can reduce CO2 emissions in this city. You can also save people considerable sums of money on their heating bills as well. And if the scientists are right, we can not only save people money, we can save the planet at the same time. And those points can be made about retrofitting public buildings, they can be made about the generation of electricity from waste, which we are also pioneering here in this city. Ladies and gentlemen, the point I want to make today is that there are huge and exciting opportunities in tackling climate change and in making this city a cleaner, greener, more lovely place to live in and to move around. But to make the most of those opportunities and to make the most of the commercial benefits that will flow from tackling climate change, we need to engage with the wider public. And that is the name of the game today. That's why you've all been invited here, and that's why we've launched this unprecedented exercise in public consultation. That's why I hope people in London and across the country, why not, it's on the internet, will get online, on Twitter, Facebook, whatever those sites are called. I don't use them myself, but I encourage you to do so. I accept Twitter, of course. Get online and make your points known. We can use the challenge of climate change adaptation to beautify and improve this city and save money at the same time. And in the words of Rafiki, I think it is, Rafiki in The Lion King. You remember Rafiki in The Lion King? We have been too terrified, I think, for too long of climate change. It's time to recognise, in the words of Rafiki in The Lion King, that change is good, and that we can use that change to deliver improvements in London and to make change our friend. Thank you very, very much for coming along. I've now got to introduce and ask you to look at the world's first London climate change adaptation film, which follows here. Thank you.
The vast majority of scientists are still telling us that London is going to get hotter and drier and be at greater risk of flooding. What will you do to adapt? Climate change. It doesn't matter whether you think it's man-made or not. The evidence tells us that extreme weather is here to stay. So what could happen? Well, we can expect heat waves with much hotter summers. In fact, 11 of the last 13 years were the warmest on record. And what about drought? Some scientists say that July rainfall could fall by 40% in the southeast of England by 2080. They also say we can expect much wetter winters. By 2080, January rainfall could increase by 25% in southern England, causing flooding. Sea levels on the Thames are expected to rise by up to 1 metre this century. If these guys are right, we need to be ready for the impacts and the opportunities that climate change will bring. So either we grow gills, or we need to think of other ways of adapting. That's why I produced the Climate Change Adaptation Strategy, to help London adapt. I alone can't turn the tide. Adapting to climate change needs us to work together. Tell us what you can do. This is your chance to influence what happens in London. This isn't some tedious council meeting run with an iron fist. It's not a mass event where it's difficult to make yourself heard. It's easy to have your say.